And I know a lot of concerns that parents have are about allergies and different allergens that can come up and how it's going to affect their child. So what are
Yeah.
the best ways to introduce those kinds of foods to babies as well?
And we have a pediatric allergist who's an award-winning author on our team, Sakina, and she's fantastic. And I am an allergy mom as well. My firstborn, Charlie, the picky eater, also has life-threatening allergies. So I feel like I've lived all these fears that moms have right now. And it is scary. I've done the EpiPen 3 times. I've been to the emergency room 7 times with my son with allergic reactions. So I have lived that. So it was really important to me to bring on a pediatric allergist to Solid Starts because I wanted to come at it from a comprehensive way and not just the predictable way as mostly as a nutritionist or a dietitian out there, right? But that's not really all that matters. We're talking about swallowing safety. We're talking about allergies in a time when allergies are increasing in the pediatric population. So when it comes down to allergens, it's a really interesting kind of shift. It's a bit of a pendulum swing happening. So 15 years ago, if you and I were moms and we were talking to our pediatrician, the doctor would have said, avoid allergens until around age 3 entirely. No nuts, no peanut, right? No soy, and no shellfish, none of that. And what happened during that time is allergies increased 81% in children. 81%. And I think it was over the course of a decade. So the medical community realized they had it, well, they think they've had it backwards. So now, thanks to a groundbreaking study funded by FARE, FARE.org, it's foodallergy.org, I think now, they did a study on peanut allergy prevention. It's one of the only studies out there that is on prevention of allergies using the early introduction of the food allergen to prevent that allergy. And what they found is that if you introduced peanut early and often to an infant at high risk of peanut allergies. So babies who are likely to have allergies, that means they probably have eczema. They might have some sort of rhinitis or hay fever. These are kind of indicators for a child who might have an allergy later on. If you introduce peanuts early on and often, it was going to could prevent the allergy from developing at all, and this is a long-term study, by 83%. Huge. So then the community is like, okay, we're doing allergens early and often. Now, what we don't know is whether that applies to all allergens or is it just peanuts? There's a lot we don't know out there. We do know that the shellfish allergy, I think it's like 40 to 50% develop later in life. So our allergist is not convinced that an early introduction of shellfish is really worth it. But if it's in your culture, go for it. There's no need to hold off. I think the bottom line when it comes to allergies is that there's no need to hold off anymore, and that there may be some benefit to all the other allergens. I would say particularly the nuts, the tree nuts and legumes like peanut and soy, that the early exposure may actually prevent that allergy from developing. So how do you do it? You're afraid your child might have an allergic reaction. They can't communicate to you yet. You could see the symptoms of like swelling or itching or wheezing. Those are the kinds of symptoms you might see. I just like to say, you know what? Start small. A scant amount, mixed in with some other food your child has already had. Even a lick of a peanut butter off your finger would be okay. Start really, really small, even less than a quarter teaspoon, and then work your way up. The national recommendations for introducing peanut are actually really aggressive, and it's all in one day. It's like you start with, a small bit, and it's like a teaspoon, and 2 teaspoons is like a really like aggressive. For me, in a COVID environment, if I were a new mom, I'd be like, yeah, no, that is not happening in my house because I'm not going to the emergency room today or like in the next 6 months. So we have on our site, if moms feel like they need a handheld approach, a guide to introducing allergens. It's a PDF download written by our allergist and myself. It has these like choose your own adventure kind of schedules, like, go whole hog and tear the Band-Aid off approach. And here's a suggested amount of measurements of that allergen that you could introduce versus like slow and steady is the way to go. So you can kind of match it to your personality. There's no perfect way to do it, but I would just say try not to let your fear get in the way of starting to introduce it, because my worry is that all these babes in COVID time aren't going to get introduced to it, and the allergies are going to swing up again after this year because the parents were too afraid to try it at home. So obviously, if there's a history of allergies in your family, like talk to a doctor before doing this at home.